Hello and welcome to Spardha Lines, your one-stop destination for the civil services preparation, UPSC, KPSC and other relevant examinations. Today, before we start with the analysis and the MCQs, what we have is a gentle reminder, and this information is very important for all those of you who are taking some of the important competitive examinations. What are we coming up with? We are starting with a new test series. And this test series that will be undertaken by the Spardha Lines team will start off from 26/11/2023 from 10 AM to 11:30 AM, followed by this on 3rd of December, then on 10th of December and then 17th of December. What we will have is the current affairs test. So all those of you who are preparing for the CTI, PDO and the KAS exam, in case you feel that your current affairs is lacking behind, take this test series because we have curated the questions in such a way that such questions have appeared in the past and can possibly appear in your future examinations as well. So these are curated by experts in the Spardha Lines team who have qualified multiple interviews of UPSC as well as the KPSC examination. So what is that you have to do? All that you have to do is follow the link given in the description box, given the necessary information, and you would be able to take up this free test series which is scheduled to be conducted on all these days. This is available both on the offline as well as on the online platform, and do note this is also available in Kannada language as well. Let's get started and look into the first MCQ and the first article for the day. Which of the following statements is correct with respect to Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary? It is located in Assam's Marigaon and has the highest density of rhinos in the world. About 72% of Pobitora Sanctuary consists of wet savanna of Arunda Donex and Sanctum. The remaining area is covered by water bodies. Which of the statements given here are correct? The answer to this is both 1 and 2. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to the Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary, which is why we have taken this practice question. So where is Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary? It is present in Marigaon district of Assam. So this can be very important from your preliminary examination point of view. We have other national parks as well. Which are the other national parks which are present in this northeastern part? What we have is the Manas National Park, Orang National Park, Kaziranga National Park, Dibru-Sikoro National Park. Then what we have is Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary and Butchapori and Lakawo Wildlife Sanctuary. These are very important from your preliminary examination point of view. As we discussed about this Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary, this happens to be present and in the state of Assam, and what you also have is the Brahmaputra river which flows through this particular area, and this region is also known for bird watching. So there are number of migratory birds that come to the Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary, and this is known for important bird area and home for more than 2000 migratory birds. So when we look into the first statement, it says it is in Assam's Marigaon. Yes, this part is right, and it also has the highest density of rhinos in the world. As part of the assignment, you have to put on the comment section, we have the rhinos. The rhinos are placed in one of the schedule in the Wildlife Protection Act. In which schedule is it placed? And we also have the IUCN status as well. What is the IUCN status of rhinos? Please put it on the comment section. So the first statement is right. When you look into the second statement, about 72% of the Pobitora Sanctuary consists of wet savanna of Arunda Donex and Sacharum. This happens to be the right statement as well, and as a result what we have is both these statements which are correct, which is why we have taken this practice question. Now let's look into the next practice question. Cloud seeding is a weather modification technique where a compound, what is that compound, is released into the atmosphere to aid the formation of ice crystals and improve the ability of the cloud to create rain. Dinitrogen monoxide, hydrogen peroxide, silver iodide, sulfur hexafluoride. The answer to this is silver iodide. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to the cloud seeding, which is why we have taken this practice question. So we have the Maharashtra Chief Minister who said that the BMC has been directed to cloud seeding if required to control Mumbai's dust as well as air pollution. So there are 2 points that we have to understand here. One is with respect to the cloud seeding, how it works, what is the mechanism that is employed. The second happens to be the mechanism to control the air pollution. So what we have seen persistently in Delhi is the picture of a toxic air that is surrounded in and around Delhi. There are a couple of reasons for the same: stubble burning, industrialization, coal production, so on and so forth. We have discussed all of these in our last week daily current affairs discussion. A unique feature of this article is, in case there is excessive pollution, what Delhi is currently employing is the smog guns. So what does the smog guns do? They actually spray the water and ultimately pollution is under control. This is what is being employed in the national capital region, which happens to be Delhi. But in alternative to this, what we can also make use of to control the air pollution happens to be the cloud seeding. So in cloud seeding, what exactly happens? It is a weather modification technology that can create rain in the drought affected areas and also to fight air pollution. How does it work? Scientists basically make use of these aircraft. So these aircraft will be made to flow in a particular area, or rockets to inject silver iodide or another substance into the atmosphere to mimic the ice nuclei. So how does it operate? Clouds often lack naturally occurring ice nuclei, so injecting silver iodide, which is very similar to the structure of the ice, increases the number of nuclei. So when the capacity of the cloud starts increasing in that particular area, then it will immediately start opening up, and what we will have is the resultant in the form of the rain. So the amount of rain or snow a cloud can produce depends on the balance between the number of ice nuclei inside it and the amount of water available to grow around those nuclei. How does it work? It makes the clouds more efficient at generating ice clouds with that neither fall as snowflakes or melt to produce airdrops depending on temperatures in and beneath the cloud. Cloud seeding is also used to disperse fog banks near some airports. So basically, when we use these cloud seeding techniques, it can also be used as reducing the air pollution. So we have the Maharashtra Chief Minister who has now said that since there is excessive pollution in couple of places in Mumbai, what we can make use of is a cloud seeding, and as and when there is excessive rain, it also brings down the pollution in that part, and this will flow as excessive groundwater, and as a result it can be made use to reduce the air pollution. So remember, what we have is a chemical compound called as silver iodide, which is used for reducing the air pollution. That is where it ensures that there is cloud seeding technique, which happens to be a technology to bring the rain. Now let's look into the next practice question. Kambala is an annual buffalo race held in the state of Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu. The answer to this is Karnataka. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to Kambala. So what is Kambala? Kambala happens to be a festival, an annual festival which is celebrated in the coastal regions of Karnataka. So where is it done? It is usually in the Uttar Kannada and in the Tulunadu regions, where we have this annual festival that is celebrated. What would happen? You would have these buffaloes, where these buffaloes would be tied to the plow. You would also have is a man. So this will be kind of a race. So this will be a track that will be built. What you will have is a stay water that is present, and at the same time you would have one person who would be charioting this. So what we have is a buffalo race, and this happens to be a game or a sport or an annual event which happens in the state of Karnataka in the coastal regions. And ultimately what you will have is a racing track which is about 120 to 160 meters. So this will be the race track where there will be a start, there will be an end as well, and ultimately this is dedicated to the god. Why is this being celebrated? That is because it is believed that these celebrations will happen to at least convince the god for a good harvest. So because they want good harvest, they ultimately take up this sport on an annual basis. There are 4 categories when it comes to Kambala. One happens to be Negilu. What is Negilu? Lighter plow are made especially for Kambala and are tied to the buffaloes. This is an entry level category. Then what we have is Hagga. What is hagga? Hagga happens to be the rope. So this rope that the person holds is called as hagga. Then what we have is hadda halage. Horizontal planks are tied to the buffaloes and the farmers stand over the plank during the entire race. And finally what we have is kane halage. In this category, a rounded wooden plank is tied to the buffaloes, as you can see from the image, and farmers stand on the wooden plank on one leg. It also has two holes through which water gushes out while running. In this height of the muddy water, splashed will determine the winner. This is the most difficult Kambala race, and the most experienced buffaloes and the runners take part in this particular program. So what we discussed are 3 MCQs which can be possibly asked in your preliminary examination. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is important from your GS paper 2 education. Which of the following statements are correct with respect to the SATHEE portal? It is an initiative by the Ministry of Education. It will have preparation materials for students in English, Hindi and other regional languages of India so that students can prepare for all competitive examinations. Which of the statements are correct with respect to the SATHEE portal? The answer to this is one only. Why? That is because when you look at such statements, be very cautious of few words. What are these words? For example, yes, it does prepare the students for the competitive examples. Had it been competitive exam, yes, you could have said that it is right. But then it says all competitive exams. So we have so many competitive exams in India. So is it going to prepare the students for all competitive exams in the country? No, which is where you have to be very cautious in this particular case. Yes, it does provide and offer the preparation materials as well. This is in English, Hindi as well as other regional languages as well. This is also right. But does it prepare for all competitive exams? No, it gives it for some competitive exams and majorly focuses on IIT as well as NEET. So SATHEE stands for Self-Assessment Test, Help for Entrance Exams. It is an initiative of the Ministry of Education, aims to give free learning and the assessment platform for the students. It will provide preparation materials so the students can prepare for exams like JEE as well as NEET. So remember, it is not for all kinds of competitive exams. Yes, it does come up for few kinds of competitive examinations, but does not include all competitive examinations. When you say all competitive examinations, it also gives a very negative impression about it. Why? Because all means that every exam will be covered under the SATHEE portal. No, which is why this second statement given happens to be a wrong statement. So basically under this portal, what you will also have is number of achievers. Let's say for example, there is a person who is not able to study, which means he has the intention to study, who has the aspirations to study, he wants to do something great in his life, but he does not have the resources and he does not have the channel to channelize his energy. So what does this portal do? The portal gives free content which has been recorded by number of alumni of some of the dignified colleges, and these people, as and when they record these lectures, will be uploaded on this portal. So they'll be able to view it, they'll be able to access it, they'll be able to see what is the concept all about. So free material would be given to such students, and as a result they would be able to study. So some of the people who do not have any of these will ultimately take the content, review the content, view the content, and they will be able to achieve success as well. So some of the students who have gone through the struggles and have ultimately achieved, their achievement will be also put up on this portal. There will be solve with me sessions as part of this particular examination and the portal, and what you will also have is the motivational sessions as well. So the aim of this particular platform is basically to bridge the differences or the gap that exists in students who would not be able to afford the services, who would not be able to look at costly entrance exam guidance and coaching. To help them, this initiative has been taken. So the SATHEE is an open learning platform available for the students. The portal also makes use of artificial intelligence to interact with the students and be customized to each student's pace of learning. SATHEE's integrated chatbot helps students align with the learning needs, and Pan-India mock tests are held every weekend with same look and feel adopted by the National Testing Agency for conducting of the JEE. So it is available on the portal in English, Hindi, Odisha and Telugu and many other regional languages as well. Now let's look into the next article. This article is important from your mains examination point of view. What is this article speaking about? The article here is speaking about governors acting as the chancellors. So the governor in most states, what we have is governors acting as the chancellors of the university. So when they act as the chancellors of the university, they would also be able to take independent decisions as the governors. But when we speak about governors, we did discuss recently as well that we have Article 163 of the Indian Constitution. Article 163 of the Indian Constitution basically says that you will have the governor. The governor, whenever he is executing or giving assent to a legislation or he is working as the executive head of the state, he has to listen to the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. The Council of Ministers will be headed by the Chief Minister. So whatever information has been delivered, whatever information or a bill that has been delivered from the Council of Ministers to the governor will have to give consent and assent to that particular legislation. What if the governor returns the bill? If the legislature so decide that they are sending back the same legislation, the governor compulsorily has to give assent to that particular legislation. So does the governor have the discretion? Yes, he does have the discretion. It can be the situational discretion or it can also be the constitutional discretion as well. All of this has been discussed in the past 1 week. But what are we discussing right now? The governor as a chancellor. So we have the universities in the state. For example, when it comes to the education, it is a concurrent subject. So who would be able to make the laws? You would have the central government which will be able to make the laws. You would also have the state government which will be able to make the laws. Since education is in the concurrent list, the state governments would be able to make the laws. When it comes to the states, they also have the onus and the responsibility to bring about a change and a metamorphosis and transformation when it comes to the educational domain. So when it comes to the educational domain, what does the state governments do? The state governments creates its own universities in the form of state universities. So for the universities that are created in the state, what you will have is a head of that particular university. So who is the head of that university? It happens to be the governor. In most states, the governor happens to be the head of the universities, who is the chancellor of the university, and he subsequently appoints one of the vice chancellors to that universities. So in most states, in most of the universities, what we have is the governor as the chancellor, and what we will also have is the vice chancellor who would be appointed by the governor. Now when we look into the history, why is the governor appointed as the chancellor of the university? We have to go back to the historical books. Let's say we go back to the year 1845. In 1845, what was happening? We had the British India. So we also had the British who were controlling a large swathe of land in India. There were independent colleges, which are, when I say independent colleges, there can be a college A, there can be a college B, there can be a college C, college D, so on and so forth. These colleges that were existing back then during the British period were all acting as an independent colleges. What do I mean by independent colleges? Let's say, for example, we have a couple of colleges, for example, about 10, 20, 30 or about 100 colleges which ultimately belong to one single university. For example, you have Delhi University. What you also have is the Bengaluru University. So under these universities, you have couple of colleges which report to these universities. So under the 1945, you had independent colleges, which means they did not fall under one single university. They were all different colleges as well. This ultimately meant that there was lot of randomness that was involved, vagueness that was involved, and each college did not have a subjective and an objective criterion as well as to how we evaluate a particular college. And as a result, what we have was the British India, which thought about a particular parameter of educational paradigm where they wanted to establish one university. So under this university, you will have colleges. The colleges will have their own autonomy, but at the same time, they'll be reporting to one single university. So the guidelines that will be given under this university will have to be followed so that there is quality in the education, there is assessment of the education, there are quality of students who are coming out of the universities and the college. So the college will have its own share of autonomy. They will be able to appoint the faculty members as well as lecturers and professors, so on and so forth. But there are clear-cut guidelines that are given. These guidelines will ultimately have to be followed by all these colleges that report to this university. So the dispatch of 1854 on the general education in India suggested the creation of universities in India so that they can ultimately give a clear-cut prescribed guidelines. These guidelines will ultimately follow the number of faculty members that have to be present, what is the college strength that has to be maintained, what should be the quality of education that will be given to the students, how many students can be taken into a particular college, what should be the qualification of the faculty members as well as the professors. These guidelines, a general guidelines would be given to the university, to the colleges, and ultimately the colleges with your own share of autonomy who ultimately respond to the university will also have independence as well. So when we look into how the concept of chancellor came into picture, so you required one person who would administer and look at the law that has been present. So a certain level of discretion was given to this person. So who was the chancellor? So during that period in 1854, the dispatch of 1854 on general education, it recommended that universities consist of a chancellor, it consists of a vice chancellor and also fellows who would constitute a senate. So they basically give out the guidelines, they basically follow and have a vigilant eyes on the operations of the universities so that they are able to give quality education to the people of that particular university. So it stated further that the officers of the chancellor and vice chancellor will naturally be filled by persons of high station who have shown an interest in the cause of the education. Acting on this suggestion, the Governor General decided that he would be the Chancellor of the University of Calcutta and the governors for Bombay and Madras would be the chancellors for the university. So this entire premise that we have right now was a pre-independent picture. So what we have is the Governor General deciding that he would want to be the Chancellor in Calcutta, and similar such mechanism was also employed in Bombay as well as in Madras, which happened to be the principal cities back then. So we have Calcutta, Bombay and Chennai. These are the principal cities. So what we have is the Governor General and the Governor. Since they felt that they have an idea and the perception as to how they have to run the university, they take up this role as the Chancellor for their universities. These three universities were set up in 1857 by separate laws passed by the Legislative Council of India. So this was before the independence. Since we have most of the laws that we have imported with respect to how the British have operated, immediately after independence, we did improve and also adopt similar concept as well. So after independence, a committee headed by Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan observed that the practice of governor being a chancellor had worked well in many states with only one university. The commission left it to the states to decide whether they wanted the governor to be the chancellor, especially if the state had multiple universities, and they were given, the states were given the option that whether you want to keep the governor as the chancellor or not, we leave it up to you. But since it has been an historical precedent and has worked for the country and as well as for the state, let's continue with the legacy, said Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan. And as a result, state opted to stick to the status quo while enacting legislation for universities in the state. They made the governor their chancellor. Since there was already a precedent that was established, let's continue with the legacy even after the independence. So the state governments adopted this policy, which went on to say that governors will act as the chancellors. So they created legislations for the same, and ultimately the governor would appoint the vice chancellors for the universities. Immediately after that, after we adopted this particular pattern, nothing, there was not much of issues with respect to the governor as well as the chief minister. Why? Because immediately after 1947 and we've had the elections take place, so we have the central government at the central level, we also have the state levels as well. There are two important concepts here we have also discussed in the past as well. One is to do with one nation, one election. When we speak about one nation, one election, I did explain as well that when it comes to one nation, one election, we had one what we had was no issues immediately after the elections. Why? That is because you had Congress governments both at the central level as well as the state level. So you had all the state governments which was majorly dominated by the Congress parties at the state level as well. So there were no tussles between the central government as well as the state government. Similarly, when it comes to what is happening right now, we have immediately after independence, when it comes to the educational front, you had the state governments which are filled with Congress governments, and at the same time the appointment of the governor was also made by the central government. So there was no internal turmoil between the governor as well as the state governments. So everything was fair up until 1960s and the 1967s. Subsequently, there was a lot of transformation on the political arena. So you would have one government at the central level, you would also have couple of state governments which will have its own regional political parties as well. So you would have Congress at the helm of the affairs at the central level, you would have a regional political party at the state level. So who would appoint the governors? The governors would be appointed by the central government, which is by the Congress government. And subsequently, what would happen at the regional level? You would have a new political party at the regional level. So you would have the governor who is appointed by the Congress government. So he will obviously listen to the Congress government, that is the central government, but you would have a regional party which is present at the state level. So after 1967 and immediately after that, there were issues between the state government as well as the governor. So the state government would want to come up with some legislation or would want to come up with an enactment at the educational level. Since the governor is the executive head or he is the chancellor of the state universities as well, he would not accept certain recommendations, and as a result this led to internal turmoil and the clashes even with respect to the chancellor. So there was legislation after legislation which had said that the governor would be the chancellor of the universities, but then now the governor who is the chancellor of the universities is opposing to the regional political party, and there is friction, there is internal turmoil, there is tussle between the governor as well as the executive, which is in the form of the state elected chief minister. And as a result, we have couple of examples as well. For example, Dr. Zakir Hussain was the governor of Bihar. Before being elected the vice president, he reappointed the vice chancellor of Patna University for a second time against the advice of the chief minister. Academics point out that after this, the Bihar government contemplated amending the state law to require the governor chancellor to appoint a vice chancellor on the advice of the chief minister. So who appoints the vice chancellor? It is the governor. Who appoints the vice chancellor so that he is able to help the chancellor? It is the governor. So while the Bihar chief minister did not want the person to be appointed for the second time, there was discretion that was given to the chancellor, which happens to be the governor. He goes on to appoint the vice chancellor for the second time against the viewpoint, perception and the idea of the chief minister. This created the friction, and ultimately they bring about a legislative change when it comes to the operations of the governor. In 1997, the Supreme Court held that the governor was not bound by the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers while discharging the duties of a separate statutory office such as the Chancellor. So he can act independently. He would be able to act independently and apply his own thought process. And the Supreme Court has also given its perception that if the law so decides and gives powers to the governor where he can act independently, he would be able to act so and also appoint the vice chancellors. In fact, the Sakaria and the Punchi Commission also dealt with the role of the governor in educational institutions. Both commissioners concerned that while discharging statutory functions, the governor is not legally bound by the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. However, it may be advantageous for the governor to consult the minister, the education minister, whosoever is the concerned minister. In fact, the Sakaria Commission recommended the state legislature should avoid conferring statutory powers. Don't give such powers because you are the elected body. But if you have given the power, they have the discretion. But if you're not given the power, restricted their power in the legislative mechanism, go ahead and do that. And the Punchi Commission observed that the role of the governor as a chancellor may expose the office to controversies or public criticism, as it is happening in couple of states. In West Bengal, powers of the governor with respect to the chancellor of the state has also been reduced. Now you have the Tamil Nadu chief minister who's also gone on to say the chief minister should be the chancellor of all varsities in Tamil Nadu. So he is making a statement. So we have controversies between the governor as well as the chief minister and council of ministers, who ultimately say that there is friction, there is a tussle, and this tussle can be completely eliminated only when the chief minister or a person appointed by the chief minister becomes the chancellor. So what we require is a legislative change, a legislature coming into picture, bringing a change in the legislative process so that the chancellor is changed from the governor to a new person. So this has happened in West Bengal. Now we have the chief minister who is also making such a proposal as well. So the Sarkaria Commission, the Punchi Commission also said whatever the Supreme Court said may have been right, but if the statutory provision is created in such a way that such discretion is not given to the governor, this friction can also be avoided. So what are the functions of the governor as a chancellor? The chancellor functions as the head of the public universities, appoints the vice chancellor of the university. The chancellor can declare invalid any university proceedings which is not as per the existing law. So if they have taken a decision and it is going against the statutory provision, it can also be declared null and void by the governor and the chancellor. The chancellor presides over the meetings of various university bodies. The court, the senate decides on matters of general policy related to the development of the university, such as establishing new university departments, conferring and withdrawing degrees and titles, and also instituting fellowships as well. These are the works that have been accommodated to the governor, who is currently working as the chancellor. So going forward, if a change has to be brought into picture, the legislature would be able to bring a change and also suggest it can be the chief minister, it can be a nominated member, whosoever is nominated by the chief minister, so on and so forth, and ultimately this friction can be reduced over a period of time. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says India, Japan converge in Southeast Asia. What is this article speaking of? In a gist, if I have to tell you, China is one country which wakes up all of a sudden. It wakes up and it feels, okay, this is a historical boundary that is in place. So this property on the continental front, which is the land front, it belongs to me. So China wakes up and it says, okay, this land historically we were ruling it, we were governing it, so this land belongs to me. Similarly, what it also does is on the maritime front, it does not believe in the international rules-based order. So because historically it was governing a certain piece of land or a certain maritime boundary, it says, okay, I am going to say that this belongs to me as well. So it does not believe in the international based order. So we've had issues with China and couple of countries. For example, we also have boundary issues with Arunachal Pradesh, and it also has boundary issues with India along the Aksai Chin as well. What does China do? Aksai Chin belongs to us. It will always belong to us for eternity. Similarly, Arunachal Pradesh is part of India. But what does China do? Though it belongs to India, this happens with China in all countries as well. It belongs to that respective native country. But what does China do? China takes over two pieces of land and it says, okay, we will give you Arunachal Pradesh, but Aksai Chin belongs to us. No, it does not belong to China in the first place. So they create the controversy in such a way that they would ultimately want into a negotiation, or they say, let's enter into a compromise. Why enter into a compromise when both these does not belong to you? That is the primary way as to how China operates. Similarly, when it comes to South China Sea, what we have is couple of countries. Malaysia has issues with China, Philippines has issue with China, Indonesia has issues with China. So what does China do? Historically, we were governing this part of the maritime boundary, so it belongs to us. That is the perception that China creates. Every country were trying to discuss it out, rule it out, and ultimately wanted to end all these controversies with China on the maritime front and also on the continental front. But because China has huge pockets, it also has huge military strength, it used to dictate terms to multiple countries. Its pragmatism was in the form form of aggression. Though it says it is a compromise, it is not even a compromise. Why? Because this entire swatch of land, as per the entire modern international rules-based order, will belong to that country, will belong to India. Where is the question of compromise? There is no compromise in the first place. You have entered my territory, my area, and you're seeking for a compromise. What type of questioning is this? So ultimately, many countries, India already has issues with China. We are rock solid on our perception and creation that we say that Arunachal Pradesh belongs to us and Aksai Chin also belongs to us, and we are ready to take upon China. So many countries did try to negotiate and also speak up to China about the maritime boundary as well. China was not ready to discuss, and as a result, these countries which now have issues with China are now coming up together and also forming a group with couple of countries which China has enmity with. Now let's go back to what Chanakya says. Chanakya beautifully says that your enemy's enemy is your friend. If you are a student of public administration, you have Kautilyan philosophy, and if you are a student of political science, again you have Kautilya philosophy. And he makes this beautiful statement. He says, in fact, a question was also asked in public administration, if I vaguely remember, in 2016, where I did give my mains examination. Ultimately, that was the examination where they did ask this question. So they asked a question that enemy's enemy is your friend. For example, who is India's enemy? Pakistan. Who is Pakistan's enemy? It happens to be Afghanistan. So we are in a very good relationship with Afghanistan. So what is happening in the present situation? Who is enemy of Philippines? It happens to be China. Who is enemy of China? It happens to be India. So make friends with all those enemies which China is enemy with. So what is Philippines doing in the present situation? Since we do not have good relationship with China, we are also not having good relationship with China. Philippines does not have good relationship. Japan does not have good relationship. So Philippines in the present situation is in good books with Japan as well as with India. So this article says that many countries which have issues with China are in good terms and conditions with India as well as Japan. So this article primarily emphasizes for the fact the Philippines is in good relationship with Japan, Philippines is in good relationship with India. So these countries come together and ultimately take upon the hegemony of China. So the Philippines and Japan share a close partnership, with the former being Manila's major investor and the largest source of overseas developmental assistance, while the partnership traditionally functioned in the context of United States, which means that United States of America was in good relationship with Philippines. So because United States of America was in good relationship with Philippines, Japan was also in good relationship because United States of America and Japan are very good partners. Bilateral ties are now displaying significant momentum as independent force, with Tokyo seeking to play a more prominent security role. The historic visit of Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida to Philippines marked a turning point to the trajectory of the bilateral ties. In fact, they have also engaged on the military to military front. They have also been increasing on the economic front as well. Why? That is to primarily take upon China. Similarly, what we also have is good relationship between India as well as Philippines. There is a member of understanding between Philippine and Indian coastal guards. We have also been helping in interoperability, intelligence sharing, maritime domain awareness, and more recently, we've also provided them helicopters based on the soft loan. In fact, they are also working out a deal in order to promote the deal for the BrahMos between India and Philippines. So what we've been able to do is establish relationship between Philippines, India as well as Japan. In fact, based on the authoritative State of Southeast Asian Survey of 2023, Japan and India are the two top choices of Southeast Asian countries for alternative Indo-Pacific partners. So these countries which have issues with China, they are wanting to alternatively join forces between India as well as Japan. So India and Japan have also helped couple of countries in the past. We do have the Africa-Asia Economic Corridor, where we are also helping in support of the infrastructure laying in African countries. India and Japan have come together for this operation, and we also have India, Japan and Australia. We have also come up with some of the economic corridors as well. For example, when it comes to silicon, exchange of some of the important battery related, lithium battery, so on and so forth, and also for transfer or some of the manufacturing goods. These three countries have come together. In fact, India, Japan, United States of America and Australia also have the Quad program as well. In Sri Lanka, we are again developing the Colombo port as well, and we recently also have the economic corridor which United States of America and G7 had initiated. India and Japan are also part of it as well. So since we are having a very good relationship between each other, we are also helping other countries in the Southeast Asia. So the way forward that this article primarily focuses is on helping the Southeast Asian countries who have tussle and issues with China, so that all these countries can come together and ultimately sort out the differences and teach China the lesson that it actually wants to hear from all these countries. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says tribal activists hail compensation for land regularized under Forest Rights Act. We have the Forest Rights Act of 2006. What does it mean? It includes that rights given to the forest dwellers. So we have the tribals and we also have people living in the forest area for a very long period of time. In case they have certain rights, this Forest Rights Act provides them these rights. For example, they would be able to take up the minor forest produce, they would be able to take up, let's say for example, the tendu leaves, so on and so forth. So there are specific rights. Apart from that, they also have land rights as well. If they have been living in that particular area for a very long period of time, they should be given papers for a specific period of time, and they should also be given the title deeds for the same land as well. And what if their lands are taken for the developmental purposes? In that particular case, again they have to be provided the compensation. So this article primarily speaks about one such mechanism where they have taken land for connecting Bharatmala road linking between Raipur and Vishakhapatnam. Since their land was taken, they have been provided compensation under the Foreign Rights Act. So this can act as the fodder in your mains answer writing, which is that when their lands are taken in providing the Forest Rights Act, the rights envisaged under the Forest Rights Act of 2016, they were given compensation, is what is this article all about. So basically what you have to tell is that there was an expressway which is passing to Koraput and Nabanpur districts in Odisha, which require the acquisition of lands which is in the state of Odisha, and as a result they were also provided compensation under the Forest Rights Act. This is an important fodder for your mains answer writing. Now let's look into the next article. This article is again important, again as a fodder for your mains answer writing. We have Lashkar-e-Taiba, which is already declared as a terrorist organization in India under the UAPA. Under UAPA, remember, earlier only groups were made as international organization or terrorist, but individuals were not recognized as terrorists under the earlier UAPA law. But we have had an amendment recently which also recognizes that individuals can also be grouped as terrorists as well. That is a major amendment. Now what we have is Israel, which has listed Pakistani based militant organization Lashkar-e-Taiba as a terrorist outfit. So in case there is question about terrorism or India-Israel relationship as to how both these countries work out a deal, so Israel has called this as a terrorist organization without even India asking for it. Such is the relationship between India and Israel. One point. The second is with respect to UAPA. These are the major points that you have to remember from this article. The last article for the day that we have is Australia to start Maitri fellowship program. So this will be a fellowship program under which Indian researchers will get to spend 6 months to 2 years at a think tank in Australia, while researching from the country will spend same time at an Indian institution. So this research will be about fostering the relationship between India and Australia, about the Indian Ocean region, how we can bring changes in the economic structure between both the countries, import export. That will be part of this Maitri fellowship program. Again, remember, this can act as a fodder for your mains answer writing. So remember these points, and as and when you write an answer, incorporate these points into your answer writing. And a gentle reminder once again, we have the test series that we will be launching from 26. This will be the current affairs test series for all those of you preparing for CTO, PTI and KS examinations. Please do log in to this website and also take up these tests, because this can be very important And do note, we have offline as well as the online. In case you're liking these initiatives, please do like the video and also share it with your fellow aspirants and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.